This is the sound of an Air Force B-58 jet bomber, thundering through the sky at a speed of 1,300 miles per hour. Weight, 80 tons. Engine rating, 200,000 horsepower. Sheathed in gleaming stainless steel, bristling with some of the most powerful weapons known to man, it is a masterpiece of modern aircraft design. Now, let's listen to another airplane, the world's first. This one was built and flown well over a half-century ago by the Wright Brothers, the very earliest successful designers of powered aircraft. By contrast to the 1,300-mile-per-hour jet bomber you just heard, the Wright's plane, the world's first heavier-than-air powered flying machine, was a flimsy contraption which weighed merely 750 pounds and looked something like a long box kite with a rudder and tail. It was fitted with a tiny 13-horsepower engine that had all it could do to turn two huge wooden propellers. On its first flight, it stayed in the air only 12 seconds and flew at a speed of just 30 miles per hour. But it did fly. To tell the story from the beginning, we must go back to April 16th, 1867, to a small farmhouse near Newcastle, Indiana, the home of the Reverend and Mrs. Milton Wright. It was on this date that their third son, Wilbur, was born. 4 years later, on the 19th of August, 1871, sometime after the Wright family had moved to Dayton, Ohio, still another son was born. He was christened Orville. Like his brother Wilbur, Orville was a healthy, energetic little shaver. Indeed, the two boys remained healthy and energetic all through their boyhood years, often to the annoyance of several of their neighbors.
And now don't misunderstand me, Martha. I think it's just fine the Wright boys seem so mechanically minded. But this latest brainstorm of theirs has gone just a little too far, in my opinion.
Which latest brainstorm, Matilda?
Land's sakes, Martha, I thought you'd heard. Well, just last week, Wilbur and Orville built a kite for themselves. A passenger-carrying kite, they called it. To make a long story short, they flew it yesterday, with Orville as the passenger.
As the passenger?
As the passenger. Well, it seems the thing crashed into the Johnstons' fence soon's the wind changed.
Was Orville hurt badly?
Land's sakes, no. Nary a scratch. But the fence'll never be the same again.
What's wrong with the father of boys like that? And he a minister besides.
Believe it or not, Martha, he actually encourages the boys to make those crazy inventions of theirs.
The Wrights' neighbors, it must be admitted, were correct on at least one point. Reverend Wright did indeed encourage the lads to follow their natural, mechanical, and inventive curiosity. But he also encouraged them to read as much about mechanics as they could find time for, and to do their own thinking. What's more, he gave his blessing to their spending what money they could earn on their experiments. In 1878, when Wilbur was 11 and Orville was 7, Reverend Wright presented them with a gift, something which would one day play an important part in the development of those experiments.
Gee, Dad, what is it?
This little toy is called a helicopter, Wilbur. It was designed by a French toy maker. In fact, a very clever toy maker, because his machines actually fly.
They fly?
Will this toy fly too, Daddy?
You bet it will, Orville. That is, until you boys decide to take it apart to see what makes it fly.
What does make it fly, Dad?
Well, son, this fan blade here on top is attached to a rubber binder. To wind it up, you simply turn the fan blade like this, and you keep winding it tighter and tighter like this until it won't turn anymore. There, see how tight it's gotten? Now then, hold it steady until you're ready to let it go.
But what makes it fly, Dad?
Well, the fan blade here has a special shape and angle, Will. It's called a propeller, and this is what does the job. Now, turning through the air, it actually lifts the toy upwards off the ground.
Make it fly, Daddy.
Let the propeller go, Dad, and let's see it fly.
All right, boys, stand clear now. Here she goes.
The little toy helicopter rose into the air as if by magic, much to the delight and surprise of the two youngsters. But on their faces was reflected more than mere wonder. There was deep interest and curiosity there, too, enough to keep them fascinated with flying machines for the rest of their lives. During the next several years, the Wright brothers' interest in air flight grew by leaps and bounds. This interest became even greater in the early 1890s, when a German engineer named Otto Lilienthal suddenly attracted the Wrights' attention. Lilienthal was a builder of man-carrying gliders, those powerless aircraft which rode along on the wings of the wind like the birds. Before long, the brothers were following closely Lilienthal's many exciting experiments. But while their heads were in the clouds, their feet were planted firmly on the ground. For Wilbur and Orville were now two young men hard at work building a fine business for themselves, a bicycle sales and repair shop. Then one day in 1896, while the two brothers were catching up on a batch of bicycle repair orders, Wilbur decided to take a short coffee break. Picking up the newspaper, he soon spotted a news item of surprising interest.
Orville, just listen to this. Otto Lilienthal plunges to death. Otto Lilienthal, the famous German kite builder, plunged to his death in a man-carrying glider of his own design last week as thousands...
Let me see that article. Oh, no. Poor fellow didn't have a chance. Will, listen to this. Lilienthal had planned next to test a self-powered glider. He had intended to use a 2.5 horsepower motor to be mounted on the man-carrying glider itself. Had he lived to successfully test such a device, he would have become the first man in history to fly a craft through the air under its own power. It is highly unlikely, of course, that such a test could have succeeded. Leading scientists the world over agree that powered flight through the air is a definite impossibility.
I wonder. Orv, suppose the experts could be wrong. Suppose...
Listen, Will. Men have tried to fly off and on for hundreds of years. Brilliant men, like Leonardo da Vinci, Sam Langley, Octave Chanute, Otto Lilienthal.
I know. And they've all met with failure.
Every last one. Why, scientists are so sure it can't be done that...
I still wonder. Suppose it could be done.
Before long, curiosity got the better of both the brothers. They presently found themselves making a deeper study into the mysteries of flight and of all the many unsuccessful attempts man had made to conquer the sky. They learned that Lilienthal had lost his life because he had been unable to properly balance his craft in the air. They also learned a great deal from watching the motions of the birds, those natural inhabitants of the sky. In time, they found that lift would cause a glider to rise and keep it in the air. The force of gravity, on the other hand, would try to pull it back down. Drag, caused by wind resistance, would hold it back. Thrust, on the other hand, was the force which would push the glider forward. The day arrived at last when the Wrights decided to put their great knowledge to work and build a man-carrying glider of their own. Unfortunately, however, their enthusiasm was not shared by their business customers.
Well, Matilda Gibbons. How are you, Mrs. Gibbons?
All right. I'll come straight to the point. 6 weeks ago, my nephew brought his bicycle into this shop for repairs. You told him yesterday it wasn't ready yet. Now I want to know when that machine will be ready, and I want... Young man, what on earth have you got over in that corner? Another kite?
No, ma'am. A glider.
A glider? So that's what they look like. I've read about gliders.
You have?
A little. But I could never understand how they get those things into the air in the first place, let alone...
Well, you see, air currents lift them into the air and carry them along. When you...
Young man, do you realize several people have been killed trying to glide?
Well, yes, but...
Land's sakes. So this is what you've been doing here all these weeks. Instead of running your bicycle business, you've been wasting all your time on a crazy idea that has no more chance of success than a snowball in June. This may be 1900, but it's not the age of miracles. Now then, let me tell you something, young man. If you...
Orville, the idea works. Hello, Mrs. Gibbons.
Land's sakes, Wilbur Wright. Your hair's a complete mess. Don't you own a comb?
Well, I was just flying our box kite over on the hill. It was pretty windy out there today.
Flying a kite on business hours. Now, see here. I want my nephew's bicycle repaired and delivered no later than tomorrow afternoon. Understand?
Yes, ma'am. We'll try.
You see to it you do better than try. Good day, gentlemen.
Well, that's over. Now then, back to business. The box kite. How'd she fly, Will?
Just perfect. Our ideas about balance were right. I found I could control the kite easily with those 4 cords we attached to the wingtips this morning. And I managed to keep the kite from tilting from one side to the other by moving the wingtips in opposite directions.
But what about the problem we had with dipping? Did she dip all over the sky this time? Or could you control that, too?
You bet. By moving the upper wing backward or forward. It worked every time.
That's all we need to know. Now I'm positive we can control this glider in the same way.
I've got an idea, Orv. Look, to help control the glider, let's keep the wings flexible. We'll fix it so that when the front edge and tip of the right wing is twisted upward, the back edge and tip of the left wing will be automatically twisted downward.
How's that again?
Now look, put your hands flat down on the table. Now lock your thumbs together like this. No, join them together. That's the way. Now then, with your thumbs joined together and with your palms down, move one hand upward while the other hand moves downward. Now you've got it.
Well, so what?
Well, can't you picture it? Your hands represent the wings, and your fingertips represent the movable flaps, the control surfaces.
Now I see what you're driving at. And so that the pilot will be able to control the movement himself, Will, how about attaching wires to the wing flaps or control surfaces and running them along the underside of the wings right into the pilot's hands?
Good thinking, Orv. That way it should be completely foolproof. Wouldn't Lilienthal have given plenty for this arrangement?
It would have saved his life.
And it'll save ours, Orville. It'll save ours.
By late summer of 1900, the Wright Brothers glider was finished. She boasted a rudder, movable wings, and adjustable wingtips, devices never before seen on a glider. With these devices, the Wrights expected to have more control over their craft than any glider yet built. Now they needed a suitable place to test the machine. The U.S. Weather Bureau advised them to try the Kill Devil Hill area near Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, on the Atlantic coast. In the fall of 1900, the brothers began a long series of glider tests there, tests which continued every fall thereafter for the next several years. The rest of the time, they busied themselves back at Dayton with the construction of still larger and improved gliders. Often during these long months of research and experimentation, the Wrights grew discouraged and all but gave up their great dream. Indeed, many scornful Dayton citizens were well aware now of the Wrights' many failures and helped to discourage them even more.
Hey, Orville, I just heard that latest glider of yours took a big fat nosedive. Maybe you've been feeding her the wrong kind of bird seed.
You say she's too heavy, Wilbur? Why not coat her with glue and cover it over with a whole mess of pillow feathers? Then she'll probably fly like a bird.
If you want my opinion, Orville Wright, you'd be wise to drop these silly flying stunts while you still can, if you hope to save what's left of your bicycle business.
But in spite of mechanical failure and public scorn, the Wright brothers kept on working. Finally, in the fall of 1902, they brought a glider to the sand dunes of Kitty Hawk that functioned perfectly. After making over 1,000 flights with it, they believed they were ready, at long last, to take their final giant step, the building of a successful, powered airplane. The icy Atlantic wind whipping across the sandy beach at Kitty Hawk the morning of December 17th, 1903, was a strong one. Almost too strong, the Wright brothers feared. Too strong to test their newest and largest flying machine, a craft powered for the first time in aviation history by an engine, a tiny, four-cylinder, 13-horsepower engine. Its first test here 3 days earlier had been a failure. This morning, however, the Wrights are bent on success. On the beach are a small group of tense, excited men. They have come here to help with the test. Everyone's attention is focused now on the flying machine itself. It is basically the same double-wing craft the Wrights had flown here as a glider the year before. Now, of course, it is equipped with its special motor and a pair of huge 8-foot propellers, all of the Wrights' own invention. The craft is a biplane with an upper and lower wing. It weighs 750 pounds and boasts a wing spread of 40 feet. It is expected to accomplish a task the scientific world had long said was impossible. It has to carry a human being into the sky under its own power. Wilbur's watch reads 25 minutes past 10 as volunteers from the nearby Coast Guard station help to fit the machine's wheels onto the special wooden track the two brothers have laid down to assure a smooth takeoff from the shifting yellow sands. Now, everything is ready. It's Orville's turn to fly the machine this morning. As he climbs aboard, a look of keen excitement spreads across his face. He first sits on the lower wing of the biplane, pulls his flying goggles over his eyes, and then edges over onto the center of the wing and lies down flat on his stomach, his head facing the front of the craft. As he makes a few final adjustments, Wilbur discusses with him the flight which is about to take place.
Worried about the wind, Orv?
A little. What's she blowing at now? 25 knots?
No, she's up to 27.
Ouch. This kind of wind, we'll be lucky if the machine isn't blown clear out to sea.
Want to wait until it dies down a bit?
If we do that, we may have to wait for hours. I'm for flying her now before it gets any worse.
Attaboy. Good luck, Orv.
Okay, Bill. Stand by on the left prop. Johnny, cover on the right.
Soon as she starts to move, I'll run alongside and balance the machine on the track till she's airborne. Start cranking those propellers when I yell contact. All set?
Ready on the left.
Ready on the right.
Okay, Orv. Switch on the engine.
Switch on.
Contact.
As its little engine bursts suddenly into life, the strange craft slowly begins to move down the track into the wind. Wilbur first walks and then runs with it, balancing the plane by the wing as it picks up speed. Then, as if by a miracle, its wheels leave the track, and the Wright brothers' flimsy marvel is suddenly airborne and moving through the stormy sky under its own power. At last, man has learned to fly. Thus, on a 12-second, 120-foot flight over a bleak and wind-swept North Carolina beach, aeronautical history was made. History made in the face of almost overpowering odds. Much of the knowledge and materials the Wrights applied to the making of this history had been available to mankind for centuries. The great thing they did was to bring this knowledge and the materials together into a solid and workable union. Till then, flight through the sky had been one of nature's most jealously guarded secrets. The Wrights learned the secret only by painstaking study and experimentation. For the Wright brothers, study and experimentation had been, from the beginning, a way of life. Although Wilbur Wright died in 1912, his brother lived on to 1948 to see victory over the air finally completed, from treetop to outer stratosphere. And the story, always exciting, violent, spectacular, is still being written. Its end is nowhere in sight, but it owes its beginning to Wilbur and Orville Wright, those two airborne Americans who first unlocked the secrets of the sky to create wings for the world.